Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today's masterclass will be about Mozart's Piano Concerto No. 21, also known as the Elvira Madigan. I'm going to show you how to play an easier arrangement of the second movement today. If you are enjoying this video, I would appreciate a thumbs up and definitely subscribe so that way you know exactly when I have more content like this ready for you. So let's dive on into this piano concerto. The first thing we want to do is maybe flip to page 3. I should also mention there's sheet music for this. I will leave it down in the description for you. And the last page is always a little kind of questionnaire about the piece to get to know more about the piece before we begin to play, such as what year did Mozart compose this piece, and that was in 1785. The overall piano concerto is actually in the key of C, but the second movement that we're playing today is in the key of F, which means it has one flat, and that is B flat. Our F major scale would be F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, and F. There's also a little excerpt down below, a little bit more about the piece. The Piano Concerto No. 21, K467, is a 3-movement concerto for orchestra and piano. It got its nickname Elvira Madigan after a 1967 film of the same name in which the lyrical second movement was featured. This piece is among the most technically demanding of all Mozart's concerti. And down below that is just the opening few measures from the full score. Let's head on to the first page where we begin learning how to play. There's going to be a few new concepts that we're going to learn today, such as what happens in the first measure that the right hand enters. You'll see that the quarter note has 2 dots. Now, a quarter note without dots has 1 beat. A quarter note with 1 dot has 1.5 beats, and a quarter note with 2 dots gets 1 3/4 beats, which is why you see what is paired with it is a 16th note, and that would complete 2 full beats. And then we have the same rhythm once again, the dotted quarter and the 16th note at the end. For the beginning, we're just going to learn how to play some right hand melody before we learn the left hand. So I'm going to start on the F that's above the treble C. Then we're going to go down to a C and then an A. The thumb's going to come over to F and go F to C. In the second line, where we just landed on C, the notes descend B flat, A, G, F, all in a row with fingers 4, 3, 2, 1. Going to F sharp with 2, and then G with 3. Let's move on to measure 5. Measure 5 into measure 6 is really a large C7 chord, which is C, E, G, and B flat. We'll play C with our thumb, second finger E, third finger G, fifth finger plays B flat, and there's a little 5-3, which means that while we're holding the B flat, we're just going to switch it to be our third finger without letting go of the note. So that way our fifth finger is free for the next part, which is up on D, C, B flat, and venturing into measure 7, we have G sharp and A. Now at this point in the piece, the music changes in the next measure. So let's go back to the beginning and pick up the left hand. Now the left hand is usually outlining chords. In the opening, we only have 2 chords that we're working with. One is the F chord, which is the letters F, A, and C. And that's where we're going to find the beginning of each of these 3 beats down in the bass. Bass note F, a bass note A at the beginning of the second triplet, and C at the third triplet. So you can see that the left hand is actually written completely in triplets all the way through the whole piece, dividing each beat into thirds. So we'll be traveling from this bass F up to A and middle C, down to A, and up to A and C, and then C. If you add a little pedal, it will smoothly connect the bass notes to the upper notes. Let me fix a little something on my keyboard so it shows all the sustained notes. Okay, so now as I play the pedal, it will connect those notes over to where I'm going here. You can see all the notes together, the A to the AC, and then the C to the AC. Measure 2 has the same notes. In fact, measure 3 does as well. So let's move to measure 4. This is all about a C7 chord. We're going to go from low C up to middle C, which is 2 octaves apart, B flat and C, E, and G. You'll see that the 3 notes in the bass make a C triad. In measure 7, we're going to go back to the F triad. Now let's go back to measure 2, where we start to begin both hands together and see how some of the rhythms interact with each other. In the opening measure where both hands play together and the right hand has the dotted quarter, that dotted quarter is going to last through all of the first beat and most of the second beat. In fact, that C is going to go in between the last A and C here and the next C. That's an A. Let me play that once again. And that last F, which is the 16th note, happens in between the last third of the left hand and the next measure, which will be these notes in measure 3. Now what we come up to next is one of the difficult rhythmic things that happen between the two hands, where the right hand has 16th notes, or dividing that beat into 4 notes, while the left hand has triplets, dividing that beat into 3. So we have a little bit of a 4 against 3 rhythm. I think the best way to accomplish this is to set your quarter note to a certain beat and practice each hand individually using the same beat. So if I were to use this beat and divide my right hand into 4 16th notes, I'd go 1 E and a, 1 E and a. It's actually beat 4. 4 E and a, 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 4 E and a. Keeping the same beat, playing the left hand, practicing dividing that beat into 3. 4 la li, 4 la li, 4 la li. So you can see that the left hand is playing the triplet is slightly slower than the right hand's playing the 16th notes. It's also good to just practice saying the rhythms back and forth, alternating. 4 E and a, 4 la li, 4 E and a, 4 la li, 4 E and a, 4 la li, and then practicing the right hand alternating. So when we put the hands together, I've marked out where in the first of the 16th notes goes with the first of the triplet, but then all of the other notes seem to alternate. Right hand plays the A, followed by the left hand triplet. Right hand plays the G, followed by the left hand triplet, and then right hand plays the F. In measure 4, we have a very simple rhythmic measure where we're just matching quarter note up to the triplet. Let me play the opening few measures, hands together. Moving on to measure 5, where we have that nice C7 chord. And the following measure, we have another rhythmic challenge where the right hand is playing duplets, or 2/8 notes per beat, and the left hand is playing the triplets, right hand's playing the duplets. It's actually very similar to the 4 against 3 that we were playing, but perhaps a little bit simpler. I've drawn dotted lines to indicate where the right hand is striking in between the left hand notes, and then a solid line if the right hand and left hand directly play together. So you'll see the beginning of a duplet happens at the same time as the beginning of the triplet, but the notes in between alternate and stagger. That happens again in measure 7, where the G sharp in the right hand strikes at the same time as the F in the left hand, but then the next note in the right hand, the A, is in between the last 2 notes from that triplet. Let me first play these 3 measures, 5, 6, and 7, hands together quite slowly. And also maybe a little faster with a little bit of pedal. Moving on to measure 8, where we have a little bit of change of pattern of what the right hand is doing. We now have this chord up high with E flat, F, and C. And you'll notice in the following part of the measure that the right hand is making a giant leap down to the A below middle C. There's a little bit of an accent with this note also. Just remember to play this note a little bit heavy. We have another A at the end of the measure. And then in measure 9, it goes over to C, which also has an accent, to B flat, and B flat, which has an accent. We want these notes to come out louder than what our left hand will be doing at that moment. Let's move on to measure 10, where we have a very similar thing happening. We just have a new chord, which leaps down to the B below middle C, and resolves at C from measure 11. Let's go back and take a look at the left hand from these 3 measures. Starting with 8, our bass notes start at A, going way over to E flat F, to C, E flat F, and then F. In measure 9, they're going to B flat to D F, we have almost the same chord in a way in the next measure, just B is no longer flat but natural. It turns it into a B diminished chord. And then to measure 11, we have this F chord that starts with C in the bass, up to C, F, F, and then A. Let's go back and pick up a little hands together on these measures. Starting with measure 8. We're going to see a little bit of a 2 against 3 rhythm in this measure as well, and that happens with the very last eighth note of the right hand. It is an eighth note from a duplet, which is in between the last 2 notes of the triplet of the left hand. Also, another thing that we're going to be doing is right hand is going to be crossing over the left sometimes, like when it reaches down to the A. So it's important to keep that right hand a little louder than we're playing this E flat F. And here is that 2 against 3 rhythm where we have that A before that last notes of the triplet. Going to measure 9, we have another 2 against 3 rhythm, and also a little bit of cross hands. They're going to start in their traditional left and right position, but as the left hand jumps over to D and F, I would suggest jumping under, and maybe even playing your right hand a little bit high on the key. And I don't know if you could tell that my wrist is upwards, leaving a lot of room down below for me to jump under. They jump in opposite directions again for the next chord. Again, keep your right hand high when you go over to this B. And to measure 11, here you're going to see that we're going to need the same C. The C that we're playing in our right hand is immediately needed by the C in our left hand, even though that the C in the right hand is a dotted half and will be lasting for 3 of these beats. What you want to do is just make sure you're using the pedal with this, and have the pedal down when you're playing your first C that is accented, and it will carry that sound of that louder C even though you're lightly playing the C in your left hand immediately after. So you're still hearing that C a little louder than your other notes. Now this next section that we're going to take a look at lasts for 5 measures, measures 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. And they all have a very, very similar pattern. I kind of want to talk about the pattern first before we learn the notes. The pattern that we have here is that we have these phrase lines that extend from the first note of the right hand, which is a dotted half, to the last quarter of the right hand, filling up those 4 beats. It's actually the upper voice, and that's why they have a stems up. We're going to try to play these notes a little louder. So in measure 12, this means the high D flat at the beginning of the measure, which goes to G at the end of the measure. Let's take a look at this in measure 13. We have the same concept, where we have that phrase line, and we have the stems up on the C and on the F, but not the other 2 notes in between. Then B flat to E, and in measure 15, it's A flat to D, and finally G to C. What's very interesting about this melodic line is that there are a lot of dissonances between these 2 notes in most of these measures, tritones to be exact. In measure 12, you have the tritone between G and D flat. We would technically call this an augmented 4th. I'm sorry, a diminished fifth. G to D is a fifth, and that is a smaller fifth than usual, a diminished fifth or a tritone. In 13, we do get something very consonant sounding, a nice perfect fifth between F and C. But in the following measure, we have again another one of those diminished fifths between B flat and E. It continues to be a diminished fifth in measure 15 from A flat to D, but then you get a nice consonant open perfect fifth in measure 16, G to C. Now, what to do with these inner notes? Well, all of the inner notes have a stems down, which kind of means they're sort of like a little counter melody or a little bit subordinate to the main melody, which is on the top. So as I play these, I'm going to try to play those two inner notes a lot lighter than I play the two outer notes. Like that. And then the next measure would C, so the C is loud. The C is quiet, F is quiet, the F is loud. B flat, C, E, going to A flat, D, G, now we play through all of the measures of the right hand there, as you would normally hear them within the piece. In this section of the piece, the left hand also changes a bit, that we don't have the bass notes that jump up to 2 notes, but chords that all stay in the same range. So in measure 12, we have G, B, and G, B flat, and F for the first triplet, and then G, B flat, and E for the remaining triplets of that measure. So the first beat is different from the other beats of the measure. The same thing in measure 13, where we have just one beat of the G, A flat, and C, and the remaining 3 beats of F, A flat, and C. Measure 14, we have A flat, C sharp, and E, to G, C sharp, and E for 2 beats, and then B flat, C, and E for the remaining beat. In 15, we have A flat, B, and F, changing the B for a D at the end of the measure to F, G, and C, G, B flat, and C, G, and C, G, and E, and then resolving to the F chord, which has an A in the bass in measure 17. So we play through all of the left hand from those measures. This should be a relatively easy place to put hands together, since right hand's mainly just working in quarter notes with no 2 against 3 or 4 against 3 rhythm difficulties. we play it a little bit more up to speed. Now let's go down to 17 for the second half of that measure. In 17, we're going to see again that 2 against 3 rhythm. Right hand is in duplets, or splitting the beat by 2/8 notes, and left hand's in triplets, splitting the beat by 3/8 notes, in the same sort of rhythmic fashion we did before, where they line up together at the beginning of the beat, but then the notes are staggered for the remaining part of the beat. They're together on the last beat. So measure 17. Measure 18. Measure 19. Now in measure 20, this is actually a little bit of an easier rhythm. Sorry, it's 19. At the end of measure 19, it's an easier rhythm because both right hand and left hand are part of triplets. Right hand's just missing the first note, or that little rest in the beginning of the triplet, but the other notes match up together. And going to our last line, 20, which we have a measure that's identical to 17. Our last little written out decoration here, none of the notes technically match up with that note in the left hand, but if it helps to anchor this, you could play the left hand, the last triplet here, with the F sharp. It makes the 4/16 notes slightly uneven, but when you're playing up to tempo, you may not really notice very much. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and definitely give me a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to watch the companion video for this, where I just play through the piece slowly and don't pause between measures. I won't be speaking, but that is also a great way to learn as supplementary to this particular tutorial right here. And there is definitely sheet music on my website. Please go check that out on veronicapiano88.com.